Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Titan Law. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Dr. Tatenda Shopera, a senior scientist at Pfizer, who was heavily involved in the development of the manufacturing process of the COVID-19 vaccine. Enjoy this informative and inspirational conversation. Dr. Tatenda Shopera, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor. I'm glad you're able to create time to join us on In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor, for having me. I just want to start by stating that I'm here in my own capacity, and thank you so much.
So you are a senior scientist at Pfizer, Dr. Shopera, and you were part of the team that developed the vaccine. How does it feel, Dr. Shopera, to be at the cutting edge of science where you have this potential to make a huge impact on humanity?
It's a rewarding and a fulfilling experience. Trevor, I've always believed that life is not just about me or an individual, but the impact one is on the society. And I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to make an impact at a global scale. And after my recent, announcement on LinkedIn, I have received an outpouring support and appreciation from people all over the world. And the response that I got from Zimbabweans and Africans, it was just amazing. And for me, it was a testament of how proud people back home are because of this achievement.
Is this the kind of response that you anticipated, Dr. Shopera, or this has come as a complete surprise to you?
It was a complete surprise. So in December, when we had the approval, I just decided to share the news with the world and celebrate. And everybody, the next day I woke up, everybody was just extremely happy about that achievement. So to me, it was a complete surprise.
Talk to me about the emotions. I mean, surprise is an interesting word, but talk to me about the emotions that you went through, seeing all this outpouring coming from Zimbabweans in the first instance and the rest of the continent.
It was fulfilling for me because I've always wanted to contribute and help the society. And seeing that level of appreciation from people, it brought me to tears.
Brought you to tears. And the other day, only 4 or 5 days ago, Dr. Shopera, you actually managed to have a dose of the vaccine that you helped develop. How was that experience also like?
So to me, I grew up in Africa, right? So just looking at medicines coming in Africa and thinking that, the vaccine, getting a dose of something that I participated in, for me, it was rewarding. It was rewarding.
I must say that, Dr. Shopera, we are having this conversation with you because as Zimbabweans, we're very proud of the work that you have done. And indeed, I think I've noticed quite a number of similar responses directed towards you. So congratulations, well done. We're very proud of the work that you have done and the limelight that you are receiving. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you where you're going to take us through what it was like to be involved in this process of the vaccine and how long it took and so forth. But naturally, right now, you're still trying to receive the clearance from your bosses for you to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the future, we can definitely do that.
So you were born on 21 September 1986 in Mbare, Nyere flat to be exact, in Magaba. Describe to us, Dr. Shopera, what it was like growing up in what you call the dusty streets of Mbare. Describe that experience for us.
So, yeah, I grew up in a large family of 8. We have 4 boys and 4 girls. And in my family, we have 2 pairs of twins. And I'm actually in between. And about my upbringing, there are 2 important highlights that have shaped who I am today. My birth certificate says that I was born in Masvingo. So kumasvingo ndokumusha kwachiri, so nditori wezhira cheche.
Okay.
But in reality, I was born in Mbare at Edith Maternity Clinic. So what happened then was, back then, after giving birth, parents, they would get a birth card, which was only valid for about 6 months. So, and then they would use this card to apply for the actual birth certificate. So mine was stolen. So that meant that I didn't have a birth certificate and I couldn't enroll in primary school. And then the second challenge was, so in schools then, like if you didn't have the birth certificate, they had this ear holding test that they used to do, that we hold the ear like this. And if you can pass that, they would then allow you to start primary school. But the problem with me was I was very short and I couldn't reach my ear. So every time I would try to enroll, that was at Chiesa primary school, I would be pinned down, right? So it happened 2 times. And the third time, so what they were doing was they would put us in 2 lines. So the one on the right, if you pass the test, then you put on the line on the right, and then you start your primary school. If you fail, they put you on the left line, and then they will escort you outside of the school. So for me, I was put on this left line, and I was sick and tired of it because I wanted to start school. So on my way out, I decided to sneak into this line. And then that's how I started my primary school at Chiesa Primary School. But late in grade 2, early grade 3, Mbare is, especially when we're living in the near the flats or near the flats area, it's extremely tough. And near grade 2, and I think late grade 2 or early grade 3, I had peer pressure, and I was a victim of that. So what happened, I started skipping school. So I would go into CBD, looking for people's cars and getting some money. And sometimes I would go to Mbare and I would be carrying people's luggages. Those who come to buy fresh produce in Mbare, I would help them carry their whatever they buy, and then I would take that to their cars, and then I would get some money from that. And I would then just buy whatever I want. And so I spent a long time without going to school. And my mom, she decided to remove me from the environment, from Mbare. So she sent me to Dzvaresekwa in DZ, where I was living with a sister. And when I got to Dzvaresekwa, I hit again the same problem. I didn't have a birth certificate, and I couldn't go to school. So I spent a long time without going to school. So then I was just selling my visits. I was going, I think back then they were still building the 10-odd area, Kwadzana area. So I would go there selling my visits. And finally, I had a birth certificate. And I was around 12 years then. That was in 1998. And because I had spent a long time outside of school, they just decided to enroll me at Gombo Primary School. So I started my grade 4 at Gombo Primary School at 12 years. And in that second term, 98, after that, I was number 3. And to me, it was surprising for a person who had been out of school for a long time. I was number 3. And in the third term, I was number 1. So when my mom saw that, she was extremely impressed by my progress. And she thought that, okay, he was now on the right path. So she brought me back to Mbare. So again, I came back in the same environment with the same pressures. And I enrolled at Chirozo Primary School, starting at grade 5. But the problem is, as I said, I grew up in a large family, so resource-wise, we're limited. So what I would do then was, I was doing car wash at near Mkuvisi River. So there was a guy called Mdara Diva, and one of my friends, he's late now, Magofingo, they taught me everything I know about car wash. So I would wash people's cars, get some money. I would rush to Charon's, there's a factory, a chocolate chip factory near Southampton. I would buy some chocolates and then I would sell those. And whatever process that I got from that, I would then use that to buy some school materials. Sometimes I can buy some school shoes. Sometimes I can buy some uniforms or some socks. So for me, growing up in Bahrain and shortly in Zimbabwe really toughened me up, and it made me become resolute in my pursuits.
What a story! What a story! So the your siblings, where are they now? What are they doing?
So my siblings, they're now living in Budiriro. My brother is just graduated now. He's my younger brother. He's working, and my sisters, they're also still in Budiriro. My bigger brother, he actually passed away in 2012.
So sorry about that. From what you're saying, then I get the sense that your parents, your mom and dad, battled to put you through school, and you had to find these piece jobs to be able to put you to school. Is that the case?
Yes, I just wanted to help them out. I wanted to help them out.
And you say growing up in Mbare was tough. It toughened you. What other lessons have you kept with you that emanate from your growing up in Mbare?
So living in Mbare taught me to work hard. It taught me not to give up, to always try. And those lessons I've carried with me throughout my life, and they've helped me to get to where I am today.
And where did you then go to do your high school?
So after that, I did my high school at Harare High. So it's just close to Chirozo Primary School. They're just opposite.
And how was that experience for you?
So Harare High molded me as well. So for me, I've always been a person who is inquisitive, asking questions. And I remember in Form 1, we were in a math class, and the teacher was teaching about number lines and graphs, right? And she asked the question, what is 5 minus 8? And I raised my hand and I said, it can't. And she said, why? And I said, because it can't. And then the whole class just laughed. And maybe she thought, she felt embarrassed. So she brought me in front of the class. And she said, you need to explain what is 5 minus 8? And I took 5 chalks from the board, and then I said to her, these are the 5 chalks. Remove 8 chalks from these 5 chalks. And everybody just laughed. And she took me to the senior master, and then I got punished, right? But for me, it was something that, it's important to ask questions, right? And at Harare High, one of the things, especially when I was in A levels, Zimbabwe was having difficult, and it was, sometimes teachers were on strike, and sometimes they couldn't even come to classes. And what we did then was, as students, we organized ourselves, and we formed these study groups where we would teach each other subjects like physics, chemistry, biology, accounting. And most of the people in those groups were very successful. So from early on, it taught me the power of collaboration, that, when people come together as a collective unit, we can achieve a lot of things. So that is something as well that I learned when I was at Harare High. And another important thing that happened when I was at Harare High was I got admitted into the USA program. So it's an acronym for the United States Achievers Program. So what they do is they take students from economically disadvantaged background and provide resources for them and help them apply for some scholarships. So for me, I had people, 3 different people who brought this application to me. And I didn't believe that I can get in. And I just threw those applications away. And after a while, the deadline passed, and Amaimano, who's the founder of the organization, she sent about 3 applications at Harare High to the headmaster and said, hey, we need some students from Harare High. Because historically, students from Harare High, they're well known. So the headmaster then selected 3 students. So I was one of the students that was selected. And I just said to myself, you know what, let me just apply for the sake of just applying. I'm just gonna tell my story and then just apply. And surprisingly, I got admitted. And to me, reflecting on that, it taught me the power as well of self-belief. That as a person, you need to believe in yourself. So those are kind of the highlights that I had for Ed.
Talk to me now. I hear you talking about teachers and the teacher that took you to the headmaster and got you punished. Teachers can either make us or break us. Are there any teachers that right now you still remember in terms of the impact that they had on you? And who are those teachers and for what reason?
So I have been fortunate to have several teachers that have really molded me in my journey. But one teacher that stood out was when I was at a primary school, Mr. Kakono. So what happened when I came back to Mbare to start my grade 5, when we got to Chirodzo, they told my mom that there were no places, they were full. So, but for me, because I wanted to go to Chirodzo because it's next door with ZBC, right? So I just wanted to be closer to ZBC for some reasons. But after, so I kept on insisting to my mom, no, we need to go back. Even if they say there's no place, we need to keep going. And one day, Mr. Kakono, that was around break time, so he was friends with the headmaster. So he came outside and he saw the desperation in my mom. And he stepped over and then he asked, why are you here for the past 2 weeks? And she said, I just need him to enroll. And she said, let me just look at his report. And my mom gave him his report. So when he looked at my report, he saw I had all 50s in all 4 subjects. So, and I was number 1. And the very first thing that he said was, you see that class over there on the corner? I want you to see you in that class on Monday. And to me, I'm thankful for him because he believed in me early on.
It does sound, Dr. Shopera, that your mother also believed in you. From what you've just shared now, it does appear that your mother played a big role in your upbringing. Talk to me about that, Dr. Shopera.
So my mom, my parents are not really educated, but they always tried. My mom, she was always there for me. Sometimes I was in trouble. She was always there to support me too. She is the anchor in my life.
And your dad?
And my dad too. My dad, he's still alive. They're both alive. And my dad, he played an important role as well.
They must be very proud of you, Dr. Shopera.
They're extremely proud. They're extremely proud.
Have they been in touch of late?
Yes, I talk to them almost every day.
And what are they saying?
Just keep doing what we taught you to do. Just keep going. Don't stop. Keep going.
And from what you were sharing around about growing up in Mbare, I get a sense that you were a victim of bullying. Am I right?
Yes, but I always fight. I always put up a fight. Because in Mbare, as I was saying, it's a really tough place. And for me, there was indeed a lot of bullying, but I always put up a fight. Most of my friends, when we were kids, they knew that I was well known for fighting.
So you fought
back.
Any scars that have remained with you as far as that bullying is concerned, Dr. Shopera?
I have physical scars, as well as emotional, scars.
Talk to me about emotional scars.
Growing up with older people in Mbare, they would expect you to do what they wanted, wanted you to do. And as I said initially, that peer pressure of skipping schools and sometimes being asked the money that you get from looking after people's cars, you need to give that money to me. And so to me, it's something that I grew up with, and that was common.
And any classmates that you remember from Harare High that you went to school with that had a positive impact on you?
Yes, I have one of my brother, Pius. He's in Zimbabwe now. I started knowing him when I enrolled at Children's Primary School, and he played an important role for me. He was challenging me. I was challenging him, and at the same time, he was also challenging me. So he pushed me to the limit.
And then from Harare High, you made it to the University of Zimbabwe to study Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery. Interestingly, you just stayed for 2 semesters and you left. Explain to us why.
So to start with, being enrolled at the University of Zimbabwe was a dream come true for me, especially in the MBCHB program. We used to call it Mbichimbi then, in the School of Medicine. But there are 2 things that happened when I was at the University of Zimbabwe studying medicine. So after taking some classes in physiology and biochemistry, I started having questions. Again, as I am a person who is inquisitive. For example, questions like, where do medicines come from? Who makes those medicines? And how do they make those medicines? How do they discover those medicines? So those questions started to instill some curiosity in me. And then the other thing that happened, if you remember in 2008 in Zimbabwe, we had the cholera outbreak. And at the medical school, we were starting to learn more about the endemic that we had. And one day I came back from school, from the University of Zimbabwe, and my mom, she was sick. She had contracted the cholera. And I remember putting her mungoro and rushing her to Nazareth because she was losing a lot of fluid. She was extremely weak. So we rushed her to Nazareth, which is an infectious disease hospital in Mbare. And they quickly put her on salt and sugar solution. And that she survived from that. But around that time in Zimbabwe, we lost so many people due to the cholera outbreak. And for me, that was a tipping point that I wanted to be at the forefront of research. And I wanted to make medicines. And from then I decided to be on the path that I am today.
So you just upped and went from the University of Zimbabwe. Had you found a scholarship? What had happened? Could you explain that to us?
So when my mother had cholera, I started my applications. And as I said, I was part of the user program, so they provide resources. And I started going on the internet. I was doing my research, and I applied to Jacobs University, and I got a scholarship. And then for me, from that scholarship, and then I just moved.
Okay. So you went to Jacobs University and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemical engineering.
Yes. And so coming from Zimbabwe, moving to Germany, it was a cultural shift. And I had to adapt. And I'm glad that I adapted very well. And so at the Jacobs University, they have this accolade that they call the President's List. And it is a prestigious list at Jacobs University because it is for the most excellent students at Jacobs. And I remember a friend was telling me that it's rare to have Africans in this president's list. And to me, I took that as a challenge because I wanted to represent Africa in the president's list. And I worked extremely hard and I was successful. And I was in the president's list in my final 2 years at Jacobs University.
Wow.
So that was a big highlight for me.
Tell me about the decision to go to Jacobs. Why did you choose Jacobs? Who influenced you to choose Jacobs?
Amaimano influenced me to choose Jacobs.
Wow. So she again is one of those people that played a big role in your life.
She is. So for me, I have been extremely lucky as well to get people who helped me to get to be where I am. And Amaimano, she played a pivotal role for me by helping me to go to Jacobs University. As I mentioned, that it's expensive especially for a person like me who lived in Mbare to pay $50 to apply to Germany just to send an application. But she helped me with all of that. And she played an important role for me to be where I am today.
And that you're still in touch with her?
I am still in touch with her. Actually, I was on a call with her a few weeks ago. So
she must be very proud of what you've become, eh?
So when she saw all this social media thing, she was outside of Harare, so she didn't have access to the internet. And when she came back to Harare, she sent me a text, and then she was like, "What is happening?"
Wow.
So she was extremely proud.
And then you moved on to Washington University in St. Louis, which to me, Dr. Shopera, appears like this is one institution that has played a huge role in who you've become. Talk to us about your being at Washington University in St. Louis from 2015 to 2017, please.
So from the beginning, I didn't know about Washington University. But I remember a friend of mine came to me and said, Tatenda, you are in the president's list. And there is this university in the United States. It's one of the top private institutions in the United States. And, but it's highly competitive to get admitted in. But I think you might have a chance. So I went back to my room and I started researching about this institution. And I found that it is rigorous curriculum, and they were conducting cutting edge technology research. And instantly, I wanted to be part of that. So, and then I applied at Washington University, and then I got admitted. Again, that power of self-belief is important.
Self-belief and being adventurous, because it looks like you were out there searching, having been inspired by this friend. Do you remember the name of your friend?
Yes, he's Tawanda. He's my friend actually right now. And there was another one who was Barbara. She's actually from Kenya. So they were close friends to me.
And then you studied and you ended up with a PhD in energy, environmental and chemical engineering degrees from Washington University in St. Louis, which is a huge milestone, which has been a huge milestone for you. Talk to me about that.
So it was just not a big milestone for me, but for my family as well. So as I said, my parents and their parents never had the opportunity to pursue education. And for me, despite the challenges that I faced growing up in Mbare, the support that I had along the way, it made it possible for me to become the first college graduate in my family. And I didn't want to stop there, just having a bachelor's degree. I wanted more. I wanted to pave the way for those who come after me, and even some kids in Africa, to show that it is possible. So I got my master's and my PhD, at least to show that it is possible. And some of the highlights I had at Washington University, in 2014, I went to MIT for a conference, and I presented my post about my research that I was doing. And to my surprise, I won the Best Post Award, right? And to me, it was eye-opening, because being at MIT, which is one of the top universities in the world, and being recognized there, to me, it showed me that, people are looking. Although it seems that they're not looking, they're appreciating your effort. And again, in the chemical engineering department, my research paper got the Best Paper Award. And to me, that was also another big highlight, that, my research, even if people are not watching you, but they certainly are appreciating, and they're seeing where I'm going.
Talk to me about that research paper. What is it on briefly? And your presentation at MIT, what was that on about? I mean, this is scientific stuff, so if you could just try and break it down for us common people.
Sure. So my research, I actually have my dissertation online too. Maybe the audience may look that up. But my research was more on how do we engineer cells, because for most of the medicines that we take, they are actually produced by living cells, right? So my research was on how do we engineer these cells to make them produce what we want them to produce. It could be medicines, it could be food additives, it could be biofuels. So my research was on that.
And then your paper to MIT?
Exactly. So it was, so my poster presentation at MIT was, I was just beginning that research.
I see. Okay.
And then later on, and then I published that research.
And look, talk to me now, Doctor. I was looking at your timeline. I know we're not going to get to the Pfizer vaccine per se, because that's what we agreed we're not going to do until you get the clearance. But what do you say to people who are suspicious or are completely opposed to vaccines?
I think we need to educate each other. We need to educate each other, because once we understand the science, it becomes extremely important.
From where you sit, where do you think the opposition comes from? Do you think it's ignorance? Do you think it's fear?
I understand why people are fearful. But again, the most important thing I think the medical field should do is to try to simplify the science and make sure that they explain it to people, that they understand what is happening. And by doing that, once people understand how things work, the science behind it, it becomes extremely easy.
Do you feel the pressure, Doctor? You are sitting in Missouri right now, having come all the way from Mbare. The gap between Mbare and Missouri is huge. Do you feel the burden on you to give back to the society that has given so much to you?
No, I don't feel the pressure, Trevor, but I feel hopeful, because there are many Africans across the world right now who are getting the skills, the experience that will be critical for us to help back, back home. So I am hopeful that this is also an opportunity for us, where, you know, whatever skill set that each of us is getting, we will one day help develop Africa. We will bring solutions.
You have a big dream, Dr. Shopera, and that dream is to eradicate diseases that are burdening Africa. Talk to me about that dream.
It's a dream that I believe it can be achieved in our lifetime, but it requires effort, hard work, collaboration, and dedicated funding. Africans, we must actively participate in science, right? And this will help us bring in solutions. And I think that it requires everyone at every level to participate. Right? Me as an individual, organizations at every level, governments. And I think it's something that we can do in our lifetime, if we can harness that power.
Do you feel, sitting where you're sitting right now and seeing what's happening in Zimbabwe, what's happening on the continent, that the continent fully embraces the importance of innovation, science, and technology?
I think they're learning. They're learning. Now, you know, with the importance of technological advancement, and now they're starting to see the importance of science and technology. And I think that, of course, we are still early in the beginning of adopting science, but I think that if we can embrace science and technology, we can do amazing things in Africa.
Dr. Shopera, I have no doubt that your story, and has been evidenced by the response, has inspired quite a lot of people on the continent, particularly in Zimbabwe. What do you have to say to people that look at you and say, I wish it was him? What message do you have for young people who are hungry to learn, hungry for science, hungry to be on the cutting edge of science and innovation?
I would say in life, the experiences that will knock you down. I have been knocked down so many times. And it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. It's part of the process. The most important thing is once you get knocked down, is you have to stand up and keep moving. Whatever you do, you need do it with all your heart. You need to believe in yourself. And with everything happening around us, this is a consequential time that we are in. And don't be afraid of participating. Never. And ask questions. Ask questions. If you have a question, feel free to ask. And if you don't get the answer, find the answer. So if you believe in yourself, you can get to where you want to be.
From a 35-year-old boy who started off in, young man rather, who started off in Mbare, are you surprised by where you are right now?
To some extent, I am surprised because I wanted to get to somewhere where I can just, learn, for example, the questions that I was talking about, to just get the answers for those questions. But with what has been happening, as I said, when I posted this on social media, I had no idea that is what was going to happen, right? And the hard work that I put in, I knew that was the major driving factor. That if I work hard, I can get there. If I don't give excuses about my situation, if I don't feel sorry for myself that I grew up in Bahrain, that doesn't matter, right? The most important thing is, what do I have to do to get me where I want to be? And to me itself, that was an important ingredient that my parents instilled in me. So to a lesser extent, I am surprised.
What's been the most difficult thing for you, Dr. Shopera? What's the thing that's challenged you the most, given in your journey?
I think for me, the most difficult thing was just seeing my parents, how much they were trying, So my mom was a vendor, right? And seeing her, struggling every day, to me, I told myself that I was going to do my best to help her. I was going to be that person that was going to be that hand. And it, just looking at her gave me that inner strength that, I have to wake up at 2 a.m. and study. I have to, spend the whole day at school studying. And my mom, I was talking to her the other day, and she said, I am proud of you for where you are right now. I am very proud. And to me, to see her saying those words, it was the most, I think it got to my heart that finally she can say those words.
And given where you are right now, what are the mountains that you still need to climb? What are the challenges that you're setting yourself? What are the goals? What is your life going to look like in the next 10 years, professional as it were?
I'm still learning. I am always trying to learn. And I don't think that of course, I have a PhD. I used to think that by having a PhD, that is the paramount of education.
I know it all.
Exactly. But no, of course, I know in a certain, field, but there are a lot of things that I'm still learning. For example, having lived in diaspora for about now, I think this is the 12 years, I have been thinking about history, my history, right? And then I realized so my grandfather died when the same year that I was born. So I never had the opportunity to meet him, but I knew his name, right? But beyond him, I didn't know. And if I ask an average African today or an average Zimbabwean, do you know the name of your great-great-grandfather? For the most part, they'll tell you no, right? And to me, I felt I had to know that because it's important part of our history, of our culture. So I went back and asked my dad, like, where did we come from? Who am I? How did we end up living in Masvingo? And then he told me the last 7 generations, where we came from. So I have that archived. Maybe for just not to give your audience just a little bit of history of where I'm from. I'm still learning about this. We started from my great-great-great-grandfather was Matemai. He was in the Darwin area. And then he gave birth to a son called Nerupiri, and they started moving down. Some they were left in Mondoro, Chiwota, Kwagutu, and they kept on moving down until where I am today. And then I was laughing with my father a few days ago that he moved to Harare. He took that leap to move from Masvingo, going to Harare. And for me, it seems I'm extending that part of my history. We are moving. I was the first person to come outside of Africa. So I think I'm still learning more about our culture. So I think that there's more things for us to learn, and some other things too. Just learning about Africa, development of Africa. I'm not an economist, but I'm just learning about that.
So I've heard you, Dr. Shopera, talk about perseverance, hard work, never giving up. What other factors do you think explain your success this far?
I think the help that I had along the way. Sometimes opportunity meets that talent, right? And I feel like sometimes there are people who actually get the opportunity, but they slack off or they don't take it serious. So I think one of the most important factor for me was I never took anything for granted. Nothing. Whatever opportunity that I got, I made sure that I do it with all my heart. So that contributed, I think, for the most part, to where I am today.
Do you have any regrets at all?
Yes. One regret I have was before I moved to the United States. I remember when I got the place that week before I moved, I called everybody in my family and friends, telling them, hey, I was leaving Germany, I'm heading to the United States. And one person that I didn't manage to call was my big brother, because I thought, I'll give him a call once I get to the United States. And the same week that I got to the United States. That was the same week that he passed away.
Oh,
So
sorry.
to me, I keep giving myself for that I should have taken that call. So that's the biggest regret that I have.
Dr. Shopera, you obviously hugely successful, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with you to discuss the science behind the vaccine that you played a role in developing. Do you think is coming back home part of your plans? You're in the diaspora now. Do you think coming back home to settle down is a prospect or not yet?
I think in the future, but for now, the most important thing was um, let me get the experience that I need. Um, Let me learn as much as I can. And when the time comes, we'll see.
Good, good. You're learning a lot. You're still learning, and I suppose undoubtedly one of the ways that we learn, doctor, is reading books. People that follow this show love books, Dr. Shapira. Are there any books that you've read, 3 at least, that you'd want to share with our book-loving viewers all over the world?
Sure. So I've read several books, but there are 3 that stood out to me that are not related to science at all. So the first one is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and he advocates for financial independence and building of wealth. And one takeaway from that for me also was in life, we need a balance between education and entrepreneurship. And the second book that I read is The Resource Curse, or also known as The Paradox of Plenty by Saeed Mashed. And in that book, he talks about the correlation between countries that have abundant resources and poverty. And he states that having resources is actually a curse than a blessing. And the third book, which tries to go deep into that theory, is the development of underdevelopment by Andre Gunder Frank, right? So Andre, he proposes a theory about the development theory, that the world is made up of 4 different groups, in which at the center of these groups are the wealthy nations. But he describes the periphery of the periphery. These are the nations in the periphery, which are the developing countries. And he states that resources, natural resources from these periphery groups, there's a flux from these poor countries into richer nations. And rich nations, there's a flux of finished products and goods into the developing countries. And that itself, that model makes developing countries to be just consumers, right? And he suggests that, for us to be able to solve this, it's not enough by just coming up with a development policy. It's not enough. But what we also need to understand is what were the economic and social policies that were implemented by these countries, these poor countries, that made them to be poor. So if we can understand that, we can come up with a solution. So it's really an interesting book.
Fantastic. Amazing books. Thank you so much for sharing those books, Dr. Shopera. We are so proud of you as Zimbabweans. I think the continent is so proud of you. You are 35 years old. Life is just beginning. And we do wish you all the best. And you've made a commitment that should you get the authority to come and sit down with us and discuss the vaccine and the issues around that from Pfizer, you let us know. So we look forward to that opportunity. Doctor, thank you so much for creating the time to spend time with us on In Conversation with Trevor. Allow me now, Doctor, to tend to our viewers who are in Zimbabwe, on the continent, and all across the diaspora who follow this show on a weekly basis. Remember, In Conversation with Trevor is a weekly show. We are out every Monday at 7 a.m. to ensure that you don't miss out on these quality and inspirational conversations. Please click on this red button and subscribe, and then you get an alert every time we have one of these quality conversations. Until next time, cheers to you all.